Welcome to the Women Who Code podcast. My name is Natalia Daies, the Senior Director of Communications and Marketing at Women Who Code, and I am so excited to introduce today's guest. As a Black female executive in the gaming industry with over 15 years of experience, Anika Howard is creating new avenues and innovating the industry, leveraging emerging technologies. As the president and CEO of Wondr Nation, a new leader in the gaming and entertainment industry, she only further hopes to continue to pave the way for the next generation of gaming leaders and to provide a platform to amplify diverse voices. Today, we'll be talking gaming, AI, and excelling as a Black woman leader in a male-dominated industry. Welcome, Anika.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm very happy to be here and I'm excited for this conversation.
I am too. So let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and when you first got interested in gaming?
So for me, a little bit about me. So I've been in the gaming industry, as you mentioned, for a long time. And my interest and passion have always been in this intersection of technology and creativity. And so I always say that the gaming industry found me. When I was in business school, a lot of my interests were more towards entertainment or animation, it just was by coincidence that I got introduced to Harris Entertainment and through their MBA summer internship. And I just, from that moment and from getting exposed to the different opportunities that I had and really understanding the breadth and of what was available in the gaming industry, it's something that I've been able to grow and flourish in. So, like I said, and sometimes, you have one path laid out, but kind of life throws you a curveball. And it's been a very interesting and exciting curveball and journey, I must say.
For sure. Just continuing down that path, can you tell us maybe about the curveballs or
Yeah.
just about your journey in tech and how you've navigated that?
No, absolutely. So when I started in gaming, especially, it was very, very not diverse, I would say. I remember doing my initial internship in rotation in New Orleans. And actually, that was great. That was a great introduction. I'm originally from New Orleans. I was in a program called the President's Associate Program. And it's a pretty prestigious program at Caesars Entertainment. And they do a lot of recruiting from high potential MBA students and introduce them and give them a rotation through gaming and introduction into the industry with the expectation of building leaders for the organization. And so when I started, it was a very unique opportunity to get a bird's eye view of gaming, not just from a technology standpoint, but from a very core people and operation standpoint. So we went through a rotation where I learned every functional area within the casino. And at that time, I also had the opportunity to open a casino. So really, really unique opportunity to be exposed to so many different aspects of gaming at once and to understand very distinctly that I had a different way of looking at things. As I looked at the operations, as I looked at the marketing, as I looked at all of these different things, a big thing that I was very acutely aware of are like, here are ways that I can interject technology to make it different, to create a different experience, to layer on different elements. And so, things that appeared very, very obvious or second nature to me were things that when I talked to other people about, they were like, no, I never thought about that, or I never saw that. And so one of the first curveballs was doing my rotation early on in my career. I had because once again, it was a management rotation program, and the casino that I was stationed, assigned to was a high profile project for the company. I had the opportunity to kind of meet the head of human resources and a lot of the board members. And a very, very basic conversation was something that really created the first pivot in my life. So at that time, her name is Marilyn, when now Spiegel. She was head of human resources, and we just had a really, honest, kind of casual conversation about what my vision was, what my interests were, kind of how I saw my career developing at the company. And within a week, I had an interview for an opportunity in Las Vegas. And I really kind of think that conversation and that moment was a very pivotal point in my career, because that really kind of put me on the path that I am in today. I went on the interview. I was received the opportunity, and I moved to Vegas, and I became the first interactive employee for the company. And a big part of what I started was to build out the strategy and infrastructure and the vision for how interactive and how online kind of looked and evolved for the company. And that's an incredible opportunity when you think of Caesars Entertainment and now $1 billion organization to have that opportunity very closely out of business school, to have that type of impact and exposure. So what I can really say is that throughout my career and throughout my opportunity, throughout those things, I've kind of been where, preparation meets opportunity. And I've been at those critical points where I've been able to take advantage of some of those areas. Now, Vegas for me was it was a big culture shock. It was really big culture shock. I remember calling my mom after kind of, maybe a week there. And I was like, there are no Black people here. Like not even the cleaning staff is Black. There is like literally no Black people. I'm here by myself. and from that time, I was able to start kind of building relationships and meeting people and finding my community there. But I remember kind of the initial reaction of going from New Orleans, where there was a kind of diversity in the city, kind of growing up in Washington, D.C., that at the time was Chocolate City, and then getting and also go and then kind of coming into an environment where I was the only and probably the first and different on so many different levels. And so it was a big adjustment for me from a cultural standpoint, in terms of, bracing myself and really reinforcing that I was good enough, I belonged there, and I could do the job that I was hired to do.
I love that. I love that you also just speak about being, well, the first Black woman, and just the cultural experience that you had. Will you speak a little bit more about the challenges that you face? We know being the first, anything is difficult, but now you're the first Black woman in this position. What are some of the challenges that you had to overcome outside of just like experiencing the cultural maybe lack of diversity?
Yeah, and I think it was like almost like a triple whammy, because I was not just the first. I think in the management rotation program of the President's Associate, I think I was probably the first African American woman that was in the President's Associate program. But also, this was a new position and a new strategic position for direction for the company. So I was the first person in this specific role, and I think it was at a time where, now you think, 20, years, later, that, it's a no-brainer that technology is something that is important. But at that time, it was a very interesting dynamic, in that a lot of the executives and a lot of leaders were homegrown. There was this feeling that technology was not going to be something that would be embraced by gaming or by gaming customers. And you hear all this now and you're like, really? But at that time, it was a very big uphill battle. So I kind of joke, I remember getting sent to Lake Tahoe, to meet with one of the gaming executives there. And I think the other kind of first was just my age, because I was, of course, of age, but I was still looked very young. And so you have this young Black person coming in to a seasoned person that's been in the company for 25 years. And a big part of it is, who are you? And I remember going into that very first meeting, very, committed and dedicated. And it's like, we're going to make this happen. And I open the door, knock on the door, and I walk in, and the gentleman kind of looks at me ups and down, very dismissive, and was like, who are you? And very next question was like, and how old are you? I think I have ties older than you. And it was one of those things where like, whoa, okay. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start this over. So I leave and I knock on the door again. I was like, we're gonna try this again. And I reintroduce myself, and he gets really, he got a kick out of that. And we, got off to a good start from there. And so a big part of what I try to do is be, I think, empathetic and just really open to say that one of these things are new, and really reinforcing to myself that I know. I think for me it helped that I was very, very passionate about it, and in some cases I was kind of tunnel vision. I think the areas that I struggled were sometimes in terms of, and I think we all do this early on, even though kind of intuitively and I knew the right answer, in many cases, I didn't speak up as much. I wasn't as big of an advocate for myself. And I do kind of or I think the other piece of it, and I think we all have a tendency to do this early in the career, I did a network. I was really like, I'm going to be the best you do. No one's going to outwork me. I'm going to be kind of with the first one in, last one out, make sure all these things are perfect. And, and the things that, and the social things that gave me anxiety, I would pull away from. And so I think early in my career, I was very, very insular. And I just, my focus was on, I wanted to make sure everything was perfect, everything was right. No one was going to outwork me. But what I didn't do, I think, was invest upfront early in those relationships. And that's a lesson that I learned. And I think one of the things that for me is that in many cases, the work did get acknowledged, but you became like this expert where you were very critical in that specific role. And so it was harder for you to move up easily because you've created a niche for yourself. And so I think as I kind of started to mature and understand the power of creating that network and creating opportunities that were uh I guess broader your perspective of who your network was, and realizing that quite frankly, like sometimes your direct supervisor and your direct line isn't kind of clearly kind of where your opportunity is going to come from. And I've learned that time and time again, that many cases you're working and you're doing all those types of things, and people are watching you and seeing you, and kind of acknowledging kind of the passion that you have, and they're not necessarily in your initial orbit. And so I'll kind of stop there. I know I touched on a lot of things, but for me, it was this kind of journey of self-realization.
It was great. I'm very curious to know, you talked a little bit about relationships, and in tech we know it's very difficult for women, especially women of color, to find mentorship. And with you being in a role that was designed for you with males all around you, how did you navigate finding mentorship or leaning into relationships that, like you said, maybe weren't apparent to be beneficial to you for your career?
Yeah, and so I think it's interesting because it was trial and error, and so it was learning, and part of it, and so one of the people that I met early on was my project manager. So I had a project manager, and he was essentially one of the people that you know was really kind of, we were jointly accountable for each other's success. And he's like one of my dearest friends to this day. And so part of it is like, I think you in many cases you build relationships with people that you have that are like-minded, that have the same kind of direct um interest. And in many cases, and I remember, and this is a little bit cyber, listening to an interview for Issa Rae, and she was talking about the same piece where a lot of people that were coming up at the same time, they became like that own insular network. And I think many times you're thinking of a mentor as someone that is, you know, kind of your senior, but in many cases, your mentor can be your peer. And so I think initially I started having a lot of peer mentors. I kind of had a really good group of friends to this that, and actually when I'm thinking about that, wow, I'm thinking about it right now. And to this day, all of us are still very close. And we started in different areas and different departments. And what happened, it started socially, that we all were, young and kind of going and kind of different kind of race, ethnicity, etc., but kind of going through the same growing pains of trying to figure out life together and building the relationships that way. So my very first, I think, mentor relationships and support groups were with my peer group, and that was really important. That just kind of happened organically because you find people that you connect with and you vibe with, and then as you go on in your career, those are the people that that, as opportunities come up, that they are able to tell you, oh, did you know about this opportunity? Here are some things to happen. And so in a big, big way, a lot of those opportunities were created or kind of I found out about through kind of my peer network. I think then separately, you kind of your business partners and the people that you that were my internal customers. I started building relationships with the people there, kind of the gentleman that I mentioned that was initially kind of like, I have ties older than you, and who is this person from corporate that that is now telling me the things I need to do. Kind of building that relationship. He became one of my biggest allies in terms of being able to work. The other piece of it is that because that I was in kind of this president's associate program, I did have some mentor opportunities built in, and so I was able to build some of those relationships. But some of those things that come over time. The other thing that I was able to do that I was really excited about was that there were I think at the time is the National Black MBA Association, and so we kind of I petitioned and lobbied for the HR team to go there and recruit, and so we were able to kind of I built relationships through that process of as we were meeting other members of the organization that were coming and helping support that effort, and some of the things that we were building. I started to be able to kind of do that just organically, meeting and building kind of the network that way. But it was definitely over time and not something that happened right away. And it was something that was definitely trial and error period. I had people that I, believed in or thought kind of you know, were kind of my advocates, that I call it brain drain, that kind of take your ideas and kind of present them as their own. I think everyone has a story like that somewhere in their path. If you're good and you kind of navigated through this professional environment. I've had people that I thought were advocating for me, but because I had silent advocates in the room, I kind of found out that that absolutely wasn't the case, and they were um, almost in terms of the opposite, and not kind of representing me in the best light. And so a big part of that has been just a lot of trial and error and a lot of trusting but verifying kind of that that person has your back, and then also not getting um bitter or upset when kind of you run into someone that doesn't. I think the other piece of it is just also kind of understanding how to kind of shake it off and laugh at it sometimes. I think we've all had the incidents. I've been in rooms where someone, people have thought I was the assistant, or, have not acknowledged me until I kind of stand up and they realize I'm the person that's giving the presentation and they're like, oh, okay. Or all those things have happened. And I think for me, my perspective is like you might not know yet, but you will.
Thank you for sharing those things. As you grew in leadership and took on more responsibility and experienced more success, how did you navigate success and that growth in a male-dominated industry?
So I think there are a couple of things too. Um, I think the biggest part for me was being the person I didn't have. And so a big part of what a lot of the things that I did were to make sure that as I built a team, I kind of created an infrastructure and a network that that would be supportive. And so one of the things that I'm most proud of are kind of, and not just the women, but the people that I have mentored. I remember when I kind of created my first team, and we had a team event, and we were putting on a kind of a workshop. Someone joked, "Well, you've created a rainbow coalition," and I was really proud of that, and that's kind of stuck with me because I kind of looked at the team, and although it was somewhat intentional, they were all super bright, super smart. We were highly functional, highly effective, and I wanted to create a model to show that you can have diversity and you can have a team, and it can deliver the results that you want. And so, I think from very, very early on, I think that's something that a lot of leaders, or as you grow, you have a lot of times. I think you have a sense that, I can't bring in other people of color, or I can't bring in a diverse team, or what are people going to think, or that piece of it. And I never really had that inkling. I always kind of said, I want to bring kind of smart people in. I want to build a dynamic team. I want to kind of be the mentor that I didn't have. And I think one of the things that has helped me navigate is just kind of that consistent passion. And once again, kind of as I'm growing in my career, that network initially that I talked to you about, of people that we came in at the same point, are all growing at the same time. So now, like, I'm a CEO, but I have other CEOs that I can come to talk to, and I have CFOs, and I have CTOs, and I have all these other people, because we all grew up together, and we all have the sense, and we know each other almost at a cellular level, and we can check each other when we need to, and they can have a conversation with me, and everyone says you're fine, and they're calling me saying what's going on, what's going on. And so I feel like that's something that I'm proud of, because I did not know I was doing that in the beginning, but that has been something that has been very, very significant, having those people that, although they're not experiencing the same thing you're doing, you have that ability to have some of those shared experiences that you can talk through, and you can have some of those conversations with. And I think then I also professional organizations. And so I'm working with organization called Global Gaming Women, and it's been incredible in terms of, just having a strong set of women leaders, and being able to bring and cultivate other women leaders. Working with a gentleman, his name's Alex Dixon, and we, over the last 3 years, I would say, have really made progress in bringing African Americans in gaming. That's another organization into fruition, and really using this as a way for to connect people of color across companies, and across uh, uh, not just across companies, but across professional profiles, and in areas, so they can all reach together. Because many times you're in a company, or you're in a place, and just because there could be a number of you dispersed, but if there's not a way for you to still kind of reach out and connect, and have that opportunity to say, this is what I'm experiencing, can we talk about it? Um, you know, it's challenging, and so we wanted to create an organization to help facilitate that. So I think as I navigate through the kind of through kind of this male dominated society, one of the things I just kind of feel like that it's more important, and that I have been a advocate of, are, how can I create connections? How can I kind of help facilitate some of those conversations? Because I know that in many cases, it's not a natural thing that if you're coming into an industry, or into a place up front, that you know how to do. And so I know that if that was a challenge that I struggled with, like, what do I need to do, and how can I create an easier path for someone else?
I really, really love just this emphasis on connection and relationships. I think that's powerful in itself. Um, just the connection across organizations too, I think
Yeah,
is really
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
What advice would you give to diverse women, women of color, who are looking to break into the gaming industry?
I would say one of the things that the gaming industry is like, although you still kind of look at it, and it's a very um, male dominated industry at the top. One of the things that I liked about the industry is that it is a very much a show me industry, and so, like, you can where your results in many cases, creates your reputation. And so for me, I think there have been opportunities for me that have presented because of results that I've been able to do. And also it's a relationship driven industry. And I think that's why I keep on bringing that up. And that's something that I did not know early on in my career. Early in my career, I feel like it's not just enough for you to be good at your job and to be very insular about your job. It's very important to network. It's very important to have those conversations and kind of speak into existence the things that you want. But it also is very important for you to be prepared. And I would say the prepared piece of it is as most. And part of it is doing informational interviews, doing your research, understanding. One of the places with gaming is there's so much data. It's a data-rich industry, and you can learn so much. There are lots of trade conferences and shows. There's Global Gaming Expo that's coming up in October. There are conferences for Indian gaming. All of these types of areas. And so find one that is a focus area for what you're interested in, and join an organization, attend a conference, even if it's just, going into the exhibitor and talk and kind of build some of those relationships. In many cases, you just never know how some of those relationships will shape what's going forward. Some of my most meaningful relationships have started like just with a conversation, or with asking a question at a conference, or with just saying, hey, can we have lunch? I don't know you that well, but I would like to get to know you. Can grab lunch. And so some of those things too, and I think you realize that everyone is trying to figure out too. And so in many cases, when you kind of reach out and you're open, it definitely helps. And I think, there will always be that kind of negativity in some instances. But I think part of what I've been able to do is to focus on those that are willing to help, and kind of with a recognition that I think most people kind of understand and see kind of some of the other stuff around, and just be advocate for others as well. And so for me, like I said, the relationship part has been a big piece of it, in addition to finding an area that you're passionate about. And I think beyond the relationship, because I'm passionate about technology, I'm passionate about this intersectionality of kind of how do you use it to make meaningful connections? How do you use technology to improve and enhance experiences? And what are the things that you can do to just level up and create new experiences like that? That's a big driver and a passion point for me. And so I do feel like it's harder to do if you're just phoning it in and it's not something that you're completely passionate about. So I think, for someone up and coming, I would say find your passion point, and find those areas that are going to kind of make you feel like joy when you're coming in and doing the things that you're doing, and then kind of make, and take the chance on kind of building those connections. And in many cases, a lot of people are kind of in their little worlds trying to figure it out too, and appreciate when you reach out, and appreciate when you ask them about the things that they're doing, and genuinely show interest. So.
I love that so much, especially that part about just finding joy in what you're doing, because we spend so much time at work and with the
Yeah.
people we work with. Finding joy is definitely important. I want us to pivot because I want to learn more about Wondr Nation. So can you tell us a little bit about Wondr Nation and the work that you do?
No, absolutely. So I was very humbled and excited when the tribe that I work for. So I'll take a little bit of step back. So the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation is based in Connecticut, and they are the tribe that owns Foxwoods Resort Casino, and they were one of the original tribes to really kind of lean into gaming as a way to build wealth and generational I don't know, kind of bringing wealth and kind of really building generational opportunity for their tribe. And this was now 30 years ago. And so at that time, they were like one of the original. I think they had smaller casino and bingo houses, but they were the first tribe that said, hey, no, we can do this bigger. We can create a Vegas style experience here in Connecticut, and we can create this opportunity for this community and for our tribe to flourish. And as a result of that, billion-dollar tribal gaming industry was born. And so a lot of tribes were at the forefront at the beginning, and this Mashantuck and Pequot Tribal Nation was one of them. So I initially joined and moved to Connecticut to lead Foxwoods, to be their head of brand marketing and digital, and to work a lot of the social casino gaming, and to help with a lot of the lobbying to get the legislation approved to allow for expansion of gaming in the state of Connecticut. So fast forward to the pandemic, which really changed everything for everyone. It was a very, everything closed down. You saw Vegas and the tribe, and Foxwoods was no different. And so after, never closing its doors since it's open, I was part of the team that closed down the casino and really kept the lights on during the time of during that pandemic period, in terms of communicating, using social media, using lots of different tools to keep players and team members connected. But during that process, one of the things that became apparent was that the tribe and most hospitality companies needed to find opportunities to diversify. And how do you grow and create opportunity beyond this physical casino, physical resort experience? And that was really the initial genesis of Wondr Nation. The tribal chairman and the tribal council reached out and said, we want to start thinking through how, as a nation, do we create this next opportunity, and how do we diversify and reduce our dependency on just this resort experience. And we have all of these other entities, but we want to be able to finally really lean into doing something in the interactive space. And so let's work on what that plan, what vision can be. And they asked me to put something together, and that was the genesis of how Wondr Nation was created. So Wondr Nation is an online gaming entertainment company. Like I mentioned before, it's focused on creating experiences beyond the physical casino space. And it's, the primary revenue drivers are online gaming. And so in the state of Connecticut, after the pandemic, the tribe did successfully, with the other tribe in the state, reach an agreement with the state of Connecticut that allows for online gaming and sports betting and retail sports betting in the state of Connecticut. And so the license for online gaming and online sports betting lies with Wondr Nation. We partnered with them to and a market access partner to bring online gaming to Fox, under the Foxwoods brand. And so that's one part of it. The other part of it is social gaming. And when I say social gaming is if you think of Candy Crush and Angry Birds and Farmville, but more, think of it that same methodology, but with more casino style gaming. And so looking at opportunities to be able to create this free-to-play game experience that allows people that don't want to gamble with real money to have that experience. And then the final revenue driver that we're working on are professional services. And so in addition to having our own B2C, or business to consumer products, we also have and are building a model that allows us to provide professional services to other tribes. And so Foxwoods, for example, is our client. We manage their social casino product for them. And we're working to build that model to allow to extend that for other casinos and other tribes. And so our vision is really to say, how do we expand beyond this physical experience? And so when we look at that, part of it is real money, part of it is social, and then the next part is what is the future? I mentioned augmented reality. We're also looking at opportunities in esports and the metaverse, and really figuring out what are the ways that the Mashantuck and Pequot Tribal Nation can be and stay at the forefront of this space and create opportunities. The other piece that I'm really excited about is that one of our core missions is not just reimagining gaming entertainment, but amplifying diverse voices and creating a pipeline of tribal talent. So we've created lots of social programs designed to do that. So we have a Wondr Nation apprentice program, where we have a wonderful opportunity to bring in a recent high school graduate to kind of go through the program. And we have someone identified, and these are all tribally focused programs because of I know how important and how instrumental kind of an associate program was to me. We are kind of in the process of finalizing and recruiting for our Wondr Nation associate program, which works, if the model isn't broke, don't fix it. And the whole idea is to create a rotation program through all of the different functional areas within Wondr Nation. So marketing, operations, finance, real money gaming, social. And so really to create an opportunity for someone to have this full circle, well-rounded knowledge of gaming. Because I really do feel passionately that when you understand the full ecosystem, you become, no matter if you kind of go into specialization, you become a much better kind of specialist and much better executive, because you understand kind of the impact of what your role has, and kind of have a more global vision of how everything comes together. We have endowment that we've given the Mashantuck and Pequot Museum and Research Center. And a big part of that is, once again, how do you layer on interactive and creative experiences, unique experiences into the storytelling of telling the tribe's history. And then the final part are what we call Wondr Smart Labs, and which I'm super excited about, because that's how do you really at a very early age start getting children excited about technology and excited about creativity, excited about their culture, and creating curriculum and programs that allow them to, once again, you'll hear this from me a lot, this kind of intersection of technology and creativity, tap into that and kind of let them understand, like, here are some of the things that you can do, and you don't have to think in a linear fashion. You can think like in a kaleidoscope of things that you can do. And so we're really excited about of what the vision of Wondr Nation has been. And we've been, we are going into year 3, and it's been very successful. We're revenue positive year 1. We are we kind of crushed our financial goals in year 2. We're in the process of going through our budgeting for year 3, and just really excited of what the future holds for us.
There are some really exciting things happening in Wondr Nation. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing the programming. My mind's kind of blown. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how you think AI will influence the future of gaming.
Wow. I mean, I think we've already seen it already. I mean, I think the power of augmented reality, and you look at and artificial intelligence, and you look at kind of just the splash that Chat GPT has done, I think it's going to fundamentally change how we do and operate in many areas. And so we look at it. I'll kind of I think I'll talk about 3 areas in particular. So from a marketing perspective, I think what we've already seen in kind of testing is that you see some of the AI generated artwork, you see some of the AI generated prompts for marketing messages. It can, there's so many things that it can streamline. Now, I think what it will do is create the need for a different type of marketer. And so you will find that you'll need to create people that are almost educators for the AI kind of tool to help teach the AI to learn your organization's brand and kind of piece of it. But imagine being able to kind of pull all of those things in, and from either a customer service perspective, being able to have now a more natural language experience where you can have a more intimate relationship with your customer, and you can kind of see a lot of prompts along the way. So I think from both customer relationship management and also how we manage and build creative for kind of marketing campaigns, I see a big opportunity there. From analysis and analytics, we're also seeing it now when you look at Office 365 and some of the other products that are putting some of those prompts in. Whereas before you had to basically, be a rocket scientist to do some of the calculations or to understand and see some of the trends. Like once again, if done correctly, you can ask and prompt for some of these questions, prompt AI for some of these questions, and they can zero in on things that will take an analyst or take um, you know a coder or data scientist weeks and months to create create the prompts and infrastructure to do that. We see the same thing in terms of anti money laundering and some of the other compliance related pieces of it. I think it helps you identify issues earlier in the process. But I think the biggest thing it's going to do, it has the potential to make us stronger marketers and executives because if the big if done correctly and kind of putting those correct things into process, it allows you to focus more on the core business, and it allows you to kind of really create a knowledge base, and create an interface to access all of that information in a much easier fashion. One of the things that has always been a challenge with gaming is just this data rich industry, and you get so much information. And when you add online, because every transaction is tracked and coded and managed and tagged, and but that's a lot of information. So really filtering in what's the information that can really be impactful or makes the difference, or that you should be focusing on, is something that I think lots of marketers and lots of executives are. You're swimming in all of this data and information, and AI, I feel, feels like if done correctly can create a easier way to access that information and that you need to make decisions and to create experiences more efficiently, and allows you to really kind of focus on some of the areas that allow you to create better experiences.
You've already shared so many exciting things, but I'm going to ask you this. What is the most exciting thing happening in gaming right now?
Oh wow. I mean, I think for me, I think it's this thing that I see that there's a shift, and I think every couple of years, there are kind of fundamental shifts in the industry, and I feel that there's one coming now. And so what happens is that everyone comes together and decides that this is the way everything happens. This is the best practice for how everything happens, and you create this sea of sameness of things that are very homogeneous. And what we're seeing now is that because of kind of post COVID, because of the things that we're seeing in terms of how the market is shifting, uh, the the players and customers are saying we want something different, and it's pushing um, us to be more creative and to look at things differently. And because the things that have existed and kind of worked so well in the past, it's clear that that's not the way forward. So I excited because I think we are at this point where we're ripe for innovation, we're ripe for disruptors, we're ripe to start to rethink how things have done traditionally. And I'm excited because I think what the gaming industry looks like today will be fundamentally different than from the way it looks 5 years ago. And I don't know if there's anyone necessarily has this clear, you know, kind of magic window into what that's going to be. So I think there's going to be a lot of disruption. We are seeing a lot of changes in the industry over even the last 6 7 months, and I can see that continuing. And so I like it because we're upstart, and that means that we have the opportunity to definitely kind of become leaders in that space, because right now it's anyone's game.
That's awesome. On a separate platform, you said living has become urgent. Can you say a little bit about that, what that means for you, what it can mean for Black women and other underrepresented technologists who are interested in gaming?
Yes, I like we just finished up a retreat, and I was talking to one of our team members, and when the sentiment came up that I think a lot of people are feeling that COVID, kind of it feels like it's stolen like so much in terms of years. Like you kind of look back and you kind of go into that and you've been thinking, and you come back and it's like 3 years later, and you're still kind of dealing with the impact. And I think what has happened during that time is that people have realized a number of things. So one, with the Great Resignation, I think people realized that in many cases they were living in a fog, and once some of those things and entanglements that you thought were so important were taken away, you realize that they were handcuffs as opposed to um, comforts. And it really allowed you to kind of say, life is bigger than what I initially, the box I put it in. And so I think now that it's out of COVID, everyone has a sense of urgency because you kind of, you were in this fog and you were kind of separated and you kind of felt like your life was on pause. And now you're realizing there's, because of so many different things that you always knew were the truth. You always knew that life is precious. You always knew, like, and everything wasn't promised. You always knew that you never would have time for everything. But like, to kind of now kind of physically see the manifestation of that and coming out of it, kind of realizing that you have this one life. And so I feel like there's a sense of urgency to live it. And so for me, I think for Black women and for people coming up, it's really just kind of saying living with intention. And once again, I could come back to kind of building that connection with the people that you care about, finding kind of that passion and joy that you have, and kind of doing and taking that trip that you want to take, and really being intentional about the life that you live. And I think that what we've kind of saw now is that there's been this really nice reinvention that people have had, and kind of understanding that maybe I don't want to have a 9 to 5 job. Maybe I can. Companies are seeing that after COVID, people have adjusted to being able to have a hybrid environment and you can still be effective. And so kind of, I think there's a sense of urgency to live, but also this idea that as you're kind of planning this life, you have the opportunity to create it the way you want to. And there's not a sense that you have to prescribe to this certain rule anymore. And so I think there's just a sense of urgency um to kind of find that place that makes you happy. So I don't know. I know that's kind of very new agey, but that's how I feel.
It's perfect. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask, do you have a favorite video game or a favorite game right now that you're playing?
So this is kind of interesting. So I've there are games that I'll play with my nieces and nephews, and like they know between Roblox and etc. But for me, I think I because I'm in it so much, I disconnect. So I write, I love photography, I'm a artist at heart, and so a lot of the things that I will do are kind of finding different things. I like testing and playing and kind of figure things out. But right now, I don't have a favorite. I kind of like the idea of disconnecting when I need to kind of find joy. And so I like photography does that for me.
Knowing when to disconnect is important. So thank you for sharing that. Do you have any final thoughts for us? And can you share ways for our audience to be able to connect with you across social?
Oh no, absolutely. So you can collect me on LinkedIn. Usually for everything, my handle is Web Diva, WEBDIVAH, like for Diva with the H, because for Anika Howard. And so usually like from Instagram to TikTok, whatever, that's how you find me. LinkedIn, I am active there. So if you kind of search Anika Howard, you can find me. Definitely connect with Wondr Nation on kind of all the socials too. So if you type in Wondr Nation, it's Wondr without an E. So WONDR Nation. As you can see there, whatever way that way, that you can see that you can connect with us there. And like we love to hear from you. We there are lots of opportunities for us to get connected. Global Gaming Women and African Americans in Gaming are also ways to connect. But always love to hear from people. Always love to kind of learn about new opportunities of how people are reimagining gaming. So definitely, that's how to find me.
Thank you so much, Anika. Thank you for being a pioneer, for sharing your story. It has truly been my pleasure. And I want to thank all of our Women Who Code podcast audience for listening today. Thank you, Anika.
Thank you, Natalia.